everybody?
No.
There we go.
Got it.
Got it. We got the short and sweet team today, right?
Nitty gritty.
Nitty gritty. But we still got some good book recommendations for everybody. Always good stuff to read. I'm still trying to decide what I'm going to tell you about, so it's going to be a surprise because I don't even know what I'm going to tell you about. So, Gabe, did I set you up so you could share? Yep, you could share screen.
Yes, said you did.
Okay. Any announcements that we want to make, Amanda, before we start, or should we just get right into it?
Do you want to mention Steven Pinker? Because that one just kind of slid in, or?
Yeah. I just want everybody to go out and look at our website and look at some of the events that we've got coming.
We've got some awesome events coming up.
Or get on our email list so that you get notice. Steven Pinker, Amor Tolls. We're going to have signed books of Amor's. I think we're getting some signed book plates from Steven Pinker. Alice Hoffman. We got all kinds of good stuff happening in the fall. So
Gregory Maguire. Yeah.
Maguire from Wicked fame.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be a great one. He's in conversation with Christopher Plummer.
Christopher Moore.
Christopher Plummer. I resurrected him from the dead.
Whoa. That's a nice Morrow Harper mess there, Chris and Gregory.
Yeah, won't that be a really good event?
Christopher Moore wrote one of my favorite books ever.
Which
Lamb.
one?
Lamb. The Gospel According to Biff, Christ's childhood pal. I've hand sold so many copies of that book in several different bookstores, and I continue to love that book
we did that Bible
Catholic.
looking edition years ago.
Yeah.
That was a big hit. And that was actually I was funny. I have a lot of my accounts were like church book groups. Red Lamb all over my territory, all over the country. So
honestly, that's the thing. Like, it could be seen as blasphemous, but also it made me pick up my Bible for the first time in many moons. So it's really quite the feat.
Love it. So Beth, you've already signed up for Amor Tools. Thank you, Beth, for that.
Yay.
And A Dirty Job was one of her favorites. So
oh yeah.
So that'll be one that maybe, because I have a feeling that's going to be a great conversation between those two, between Gregory Maguire and Chris. I mean, I'm really looking forward to that one. So without further ado, Gabe, we're going to let you go first, and then Amanda, you go, and then I'll go, okay?
I'm going to start with, since we're all heading back to school, I decided to lead off with I Left My Homework in the Hamptons by Bloth Grossberg. This is a memoir. And we've done a number of these things at Harper and Morrow in the past, looking at students, looking at schools, looking at academics through various lenses, whether it be memoir or whether it be hardcore social science or whether it's an immersive kind of a narrative, nonfiction. This takes the face of a memoir, and she really, it's eye-opening. We've all seen the college admittance situation that happened here on the West Coast, USC, and all these other schools with the rowing team and Lori Loughlin's kids, and various celebrities paying money to get their kids in to the better schools, and they have a leg up. I mean, the people with money have a leg up, and that's just the bottom line of this. Memoir. It is just how privilege works, how it's expected that kids will go to these prestigious schools. They eat up the seats because they, as someone just recently did for their kids, send $50,000 to Stanford right before the kid goes to college, or they buy a building or whatever they do. So they have the means to get their kids into these prestigious schools. At the same time, if the kid is feeling too much drama at school, at NYU or at Columbia, for example, and the kid's feeling stressed out, the parents can just fly the kid to Rome for a week so they can decompress. They can catch up with the notes from somebody. So it's this really obscene look at how easy it is for the rich to get all this education that they take for granted, and then there's all these people in the real world who are trying to get a leg up and they can't get into these prestigious schools. Not that you necessarily want to accumulate, $300,000 in debt anymore either. But I think, there's a really big education gap between the haves and the have-nots, and it's really hard for the have-nots to get ahead. And really how obscene it is, how taken for granted some of these. What some kids would give a left arm to attend a certain school, that these kids are just partying through it, getting gentleman C's, just barely getting by, not doing a whole lot of work, doing a lot of partying, a lot of traveling, and interesting. Some really good insights. So it's all over the place. It really does focus a lot on the disparities of education primarily, and the disadvantages that the majority of the world has compared to the rich. So it's a real interesting look. She tutored these kids in Manhattan, the upper echelon of kids in Manhattan for a lot of years, and she saw a lot. And when you're the help, you're kind of invisible. So things go on that you're just a blank wall. So there's some good stuff here. So I left my homework in the Hamptons. What I learned teaching the children of the 1% by Blythe Grossberg.
It just makes my stomach turn when you think about that. You know what I mean? It's just like when you really think about that level of privilege that they don't appreciate. They don't, I'm not to say every kid is like that comes from that kind of money, but as a general rule, it is sort of, and it's always seems to be like their parents got there from like really hard work, and the kids are like, just don't give a shit.
Right. It's really, I knew somebody who said, look, I could afford to give my kid one car. If I could afford to give my kid 2 cars, I would give him 2 cars. I'm like,
yeah,
that makes sense. But
yeah, I don't
and
know.
it is taken for granted. I used to manage a bookstore with a really reputable college down the street, and I used to hire from the college, and I used to hire from the high school in Northeast LA in Eagle Rock. And you know what? My best employees were the high school kids from Eagle Rock.
No, I imagine, and it's I don't know. That's a really,
they were smarter. They got it. They were driven. They were driven. They were smarter.
That's the key right there. Is that that's what is so disturbing about it. It's these, like you said, there's kids who want to be at a school like a Harvard or wherever and can't get there, that are driven, that would do something with it. And these other kids are just like, they just want that name on their, for whatever reason, they'll never need it or use it because they won't need to.
They're going to get a good job anyways,
Or they're not even going to have a job because, that's the other part of it. Or they'll do something that would just like to pass their time. Anyways, or become those, like, what do they call it? That's another weird thing, is that the super philanthropy. That's another one that's like a crazy. Anyways, I digress. So Amanda, what do you got for us?
This is a book from Tin House, and it's called Always Crashing in the Same Car on Art, Crisis, and Los Angeles, California, by Matthew Spector, who is the founding editor of the LA Review of Books. In the early 2000s, so this is a true story, he moves into an LA apartment that is supposedly opposite of the one in which F. Scott Fitzgerald spent the last part of his life. And Fitzgerald was always Spector's literary idol. And so he's in a place, Spector is, where he's just been divorced. His professional career is kind of floundering. His mother's just been diagnosed with cancer. So he's in a rough spot. And the book is his journey to make sense of success and failure that happens in all artists' lives. And he does this through the lens of kind of the ghosts of famous and not as famous, but still noted characters in LA's history. It's really well written. His voice is fantastic. And it has some really good review quotes. Charles Yu, author of Interior Chinatown, says, Spectre has captured the LA I know, the one all around me and the one in my head. A city of invention and grit, surface and underbelly. And Janet Fitch, author of White Oleander, says he intricately knits his own losses and nostalgias into a larger cultural narrative of writers and filmmakers whose failures left behind a ghostly glamour. I can't get it out of my mind. So that's for anyone who loves LA or hates it. That's Always Crashing in the Same Car by
Yeah.
Matthew Spector.
Sounds good. LA is
Must
one of
have.
those. Yeah. LA
Must
is,
have.
I mean, Gabe, you grew up in LA. I grew up in the suburbs of LA. LA is so hard to define that it really is. It's got so many different facets to it. So
It's awesome. That's how you define LA.
awesome.
Awesome.
It's awesome.
It's the best place to grow up.
It was.
To
I
have
mean,
grown up.
yeah, it was. I mean, I grew up in the late in the 70s there, and it was
Live.
live. When I came down to
Only-
San Diego, it was just like, this was like the sleepy little town compared to LA.
I've only been to LA a couple times in my life, actually. So it's this very weird, monolithic
Yeah.
place that kind of scares me. So I really enjoyed viewing it from afar.
But I think it's one of those places that, like, when you grow up there, you have this whole other thought to it. You know what I mean? That with people from the outside looking at it, it's like, no, that's not what
Yeah.
it's like.
It's
You
very
know?
concrete. If you grew up in LA, it's a very concrete. We understand LA. You know
Right.
what it is. It's big.
Right.
It's the suburbs are LA. You grew up in one of the valleys. You're still LA. You know.
Yeah,
Driving to Hollywood on the weekends. Used
exactly.
to drive to Westwood to watch movies from
Yep.
East LA,
Precisely.
the San Gabriel Valley area when I was older. We all did the same things. We all go watch, Grunions,
Yep.
beach Sundays at the beach,
Beach. Yeah.
bonfires at Will
But it's
Rogers.
not, but it doesn't have that, like, people from New York or people from San Francisco there's a big city kind of, it doesn't have that city kind of feel, but it's bigger, but it's a very different. Yeah, that sounds like a good book, Amanda. Okay, I'm one of those people that the last book I read is always my favorite book. So I just read, let's see if I can pull up a picture of it for you. Let's see, what do we got? Oh, we've got that. Nope, that's not what I want. That's not what I want either. Where am I? Oh,
Your
for
session
goodness.
expired.
My session's expiring, but I can't. It's not letting me find where I'm going. There it is. In the Book of Accidents. I just finished this weekend. It's a 500 plus tome of a novel. If you like horror, if you're anywhere at all interested in horror, this is a book for you. It's in the vein of a great Stephen King. It was really good. And I don't necessarily read horror very often, if at all. I mean, I read there's one coming out in October called This Thing Between Us, which was a little short one. But the Book of Accidents, it just kept me going, because in the heart of it is a story about this man and his son, and there's some abuse, that family issues that have gone on. But if you like horror and you're into letting your mind just travel in between these worlds, it's really, really good. It kept me, I literally blew through that in like 3 days. And for a 500 pager for me, that was pretty good. So kept the pages going. There's in between worlds. There's all kinds of, there's a little bit of like magic sort of in it. But anyways, just a great horror book. So The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig. Wendig, I think. Yeah. So it's good.
Looks legit.
It's legit. Love it. Okay, Gabe, what's your next one?
My next book is I'm going to stay on the education front. And we're going to talk about historically Black colleges in America, and The State Must Provide by Adam Harris. And, we've seen this conversation actually, notoriously underfunded, notoriously overlooked by recruiters, by educators. They're scattered all over the country. California only has one historically Black college, and it's a medical school up north. that has something like 600, admits like 650 students. So they're primarily in a different part of the country, but where they're most needed and where they're most overlooked by the actual state. So federal government's been, occasionally try to do things for them, try to get them some funding. So this is really a good look at the fight that these people are fighting. And ultimately, because we're in these times where we're, rediscovering the huge amount of racism and institutionalized racism in America, it really does shine a light on the disparity of educating the African American citizen compared to everybody else. And I mean, we see it. You look at when you're looking at schools for your kids, you see, a school's got 4 or 5% Black kids admitted. It's usually right around there. A lot of times it's athletes, so the number is really skewed. So Adam Harris really just shines a light into the world of education, into the world of education, and again, it's a social history. It is a history, it is a current affairs book. There's a lot going on in this narrative by Adam Harris, but the reviews have been really, really strong. The reads have been really strong. We have a former undersecretary of education with the blurb. The trades gave it really good review attention, starred reviews from the Library Journal and a couple others. So this is somebody that has been working on this story for a long time. So it's a really good look. And the disparities are there. We can't seem to, make a lot of people believe it, but I think the majority of Americans understand what's going on in this country, and it's about a third that fight the trend and understand and purposely misunderstand everything. But this is a book for anybody who wants to read it. If you have somebody who has a problem, you're trying to figure out why you have to have a Black school, and that's racist, and there's so many silly arguments about these colleges and so many misconceptions. So Adam Harris just uncovers a lot, and it's a real learning experience. Really great read. If you're a history reader at all, if you're a social scientist of any sort, if you're a curious educator, you got to have this book on your list. You really do have to put this book on your list. So it's and pass it on.
Yeah, no, definitely a topic that needs to be discussed more, for sure.
I see that Ed Young, the author of I Contain Multitudes, gave it a really good blurb. That book is awesome, by the way. I Contain Multitudes. He's a great science writer. But he said this book is a punch in the gut. Let it also be a line in the sand. That's really powerful.
Love it. Okay, Amanda, what do you got?
Immaculate.
Yes.
And damning.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a good writer. So if he's saying the writing is immaculate, like it must.
And it's getting really good attention right now. It's this is actually released a few weeks ago, and I didn't bring it up because I'm like it was a tough sell in my territory. Not a lot of colleges in my territory, so I understand that. But a lot of good information's coming up, and the reviewers are making it it's a must read for anybody, and all those things I talked about.
Love it. Well, that's the thing with it seems to be a little bit different with the nonfiction versus the fiction. The nonfiction seems to have longer legs, where it'll and it takes a little bit longer to get the public aware of some of the nonfiction that's really good. So all right, Amanda, what do you have next?
This is one I think Andrea probably would have talked about today if she were here today with us. But it's from Unnamed Press. It's called Rude Talk in Athens, Ancient Rivals, The Birth of Comedy, and a Writer's Journey Through Greece by Mark Haskell Smith. And it's so good. He's well known for his novels, his comedic novels, but this is a true story. So one of the blurbs says, "This is the most sophisticated book you'll read about writers insulting people they hate." So this is about how we don't have a lot of the plays from Greece. A lot of them were destroyed by, time or war. So we've only got fragments, or we hear about them secondhand in the plays. We hear about the plays of some writers secondhand because they were insulted in the plays we do have. So this book is very bawdy. It's very naughty. There's some language, but I think anyone who appreciates Greek theater knows that that kind of comes with the territory. The Greeks really knew how to party, and our author does too. So if you're in the mood for something that touches upon scholarly topics but is not at all in, like, it's not academic. I mean, he definitely has an excellent he has a nice reading list in the back that he refers to, but he says himself, the sections of this book that are historical recreations are based on information that I have pulled from various sources, trying to paint a picture of Athenian life circa 420 BCE. Just like a cheesy recreation on the History Channel, some artistic license has been taken. So that's the kind of writing we've got here. So highly recommend this as a travelogue and a history and just sheer fun. Rude Talk in Athens.
Love it.
Is out tomorrow.
Okay.
Love it.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so I said the last book that I always finish is like my current favorite book. So I thought, okay, we should go back to like one of my all-time favorite books. And it's an old one, but well worth talking about, I think. So let's bring up, Gabe, you got this down better than I do. I got to learn, I guess, how to do it. No, you know what? I don't think I could do a PowerPoint because I would have to think about what I'm doing before I just like go on the fly when I decide what I'm going to talk about.
That's what I do. It's really easy though. I'll show you.
All right. I might have to learn.
It does itself.
All right. Let the great world spin. And I think I love this. Did you read this book, Gabe?
Mhm.
Yeah, I love this book. This is one of those that I forget about when somebody maybe I haven't recommended books to in a while or may not know about it or whatever. It was on our bestseller list forever. So people who are watching this may be like, oh, whatever, Julie, we've already read it. But I think it's well worth bringing back up again. It's, I think somebody said that it's like the best like 9/11 novel. It was the first great 9/11 novel, I think is what Esquire said about it. And so being that we're kind of in the place that we're in right now, might not be a bad one to read. But it takes place in the 70s though, when Philippe Petit walked between the Twin Towers. And then, not the Twin, yeah. And so, and I think there's like 11 different characters that all kind of, their stories all kind of intersect. It's brilliant. It's just, to me, it's one of the best books I've read. Stay on my top 10 list of all time for sure. So Let the Great World Spin. If you've never read Colin McCann, this is a great one to start with. And then you could read everything else that he's ever written. A Paragon 2 years ago was my favorite book that came out that year. So anyways, I'm a little bit of a Colin McCann fan. He came to the store and read to us for like 30 minutes and was like, oh, I was in heaven. So if you ever get the chance to see him, that's another thing to do.
He's always so good.
He's so good. I mean, it's just and like in a Paragon, do we need address that issue? He just does things in a way that is he's just brilliant. I love him. All right. Got a lightning round for us, Gabe?
I got something. I got a little something. So I'm going to go to, because I don't know how to go to here without going here. This is one of those books that was kind of lost in my catalog, and I'm trying to revive it because it's the kind of picaresque novel that I really like. And I think it's one of those books that you can pick up at any given time. And when you want to just get away from things and jump on an airplane, it's a paperback original at $16.99. It's one of our British imports. And sort of got lost in the back of the catalog, but it's a really fun, picaresque novel, late 18th century, 19th century. We have, late 19th century. let me get where are we? This is the 21st century. Yikes. So yeah, so late 19th century, we have young Daniel Bones and his brother Eric, motherless sons of a drunk, I think he's a blacksmith, if I recall. It's been a while since I read this. And they have a life that, as Daniel is a little bit of a thinker, feels like, the 1800s are passing him by. They're going to pass him and his brother by, and they're going to be irrelevant and dead and have done nothing, when out of the water emerges the captain. And this captain is this huge, bigger than life body character, straight out of, the Flashman books. One of those things. That's the audience, I think, that would really love this book. So he is this giant body, traveling, big talking, cigar smoking figure that is looking for somebody to take along with him in his journeys that can help him maintain himself, kind of thing. So it's all a valet, essentially. Somebody that can look after him. So we have Daniel, who's like 14, maybe 15, because nobody knows exactly when they were born. Is like, he offers him the job and he goes, paid, of course. And then, the chorus sings, of course, paid, of course. And they're off. And he meets all these people traveling the waterways of Europe and England and across the pond and all through Europe, and meeting nobles and kings and queens and scoundrels, and losing himself and then finding himself. So there's a little bit of depth to this book. It's not just a drunken orgy of travel and drink. There's actually a little bit of thought that goes, which is why I like this book. It was a little introspective, ultimately, as he decides who he wants to be and who he's going to be and who he should be. As he's sort of travelingly, not so much aimlessly, but definitely letting the current carry him, which I think, there comes a time, some people never do, but I think there comes a time when most thinking people say, who am I going to be? Who am I going to create? What am I going to make of myself? Instead of just like, I wake up the next day and the wind just brought me here, So I loved it. It was just one of those fun, picaresque body. Like I said, I love and he's gone, so there will be no more Flashman books. But yeah, that audience, the Bertie and Jeeves, PG Woodhouse audience is going to like this kind of a book. People who like funny books and adventure. It's a bit of a swashbuckler in its way. So loved it. Recommending it. Paperback original. Owen Booth is the author. I don't think, I think the Bernard Cornwell audience will like this book.
Okay. Yep.
I'm that audience.
Yeah.
I think it's just got, like I said, a little bit of a swashbuckling travel.
So it's a paperback original. Like, is it just a standard like 300 pager kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 320, something like that.
Yeah.
It's it's a good, satisfying read.
Good. All right. Oh, sounds really good. All right, Amanda, what do you got to bring us home?
So, sorry, Gabe, people who would like Christopher Moore might like that book?
I think so, because the characters are kind of so offbeat.
Yeah.
Some of the characters are so because part of the charm of a Chris Moore book is there's a certain level of 15-year-old adolescent boy humor and need for adventure and stupidity.
I've got a little bit of that in me. Cool. It looks great. I just realized all my books today are nonfiction. So my last book, pretty serious book, but very important, comes out tomorrow. This is Paradise, One Town's Struggle to Survive an American Wildfire by Lizzie Johnson. It's fire season. It might be forever. I often refer people to the website iscaliforniaonfire.com. I would recommend it if you need a very dark chuckle. Anyway, so this book is really a masterpiece of reportage. It's a firsthand account from many voices of the Camp Fire. which was our deadliest fire in a century. And it not only tells the story of what it's like to be caught in this disastrous occurrence, but also how it happened. It, it not only includes testimony from people on the ground and public records. It looks at the root causes from climate change to flaws in our alert system, Pacific Gas and Electric's decades of neglect. So it's a cautionary tale, but it's also just astoundingly written. Like, it reads like a thriller. And speaking of that, someone who knows how to write like that, Eric Larson, author of The Splendid and the Vile, says this is a reportorial tour de force. And that's just a perfect way of describing it. So if you want to know how we got to this crazy point, Paradise, very important book, comes out tomorrow.
Did either of you watch the documentary, I think that KPBS did, about Paradise?
Mm-mm.
Whew. Whew, whew, whew. That anybody survived driving out of there is shocking. And it did, and it covered a lot of the things that you were just talking about, Amanda, like the warning system and where they thought. Here's the thing that happens with this kind of tragedy, is that all of your systems that you had in place before, you kind of have to throw out the window because nothing is acting like it should. Like, that fire didn't act like it should. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're doing. And so all of the preparation that everybody had based on previous traditional fires should have worked. But because this was just completely out of control, so it's absolutely a cautionary tale. So that's,
I mean, we got a big super fire raging still, that's
yeah.
not going away.
We're gonna get there. Our air quality is gonna go in San Diego here because of it. The way that the winds are coming. So it affects everybody, whether you're in the path of it or. Okay, so I'm gonna close with, where am I? I'm gonna close with Michelle Gable. Our local San Diego author is doing an event tomorrow. So she is the author of The Paris Apartment and a couple other ones that Lost Book of Summer, I think. Anyways, I'm being really bad on what I'm talking about here. But this is a new book. Gabe, I think this is one of your books too, I think.
I know that jacket looked familiar, but they all do.
They all do. But
It's a great jacket. So
yeah,
I was going to talk about this. I was debating talking about this one because we got a great jacket and I think we're going to get some good attention.
I think it's going to get some really good attention.
Real good attention on this book. I think it's Nancy Mitford. We do these things, these paperback originals, historicals like this. And we do a lot of them. But this one's just like, we got a really huge advanced first print on this one. We got a really good package on it. And,
yep.
Any book about a bookseller, I'm down.
A lot of books about booksellers right now. The Bookseller of London, the Booksellers of Paris. But
we deserve to be protagonists.
I know.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it.
Heroes. We should be heroes.
Yeah, we are heroes. We got our capes on. We got our superhero capes. But Michelle, when she tackles the subject, she does a great job. The Paris Apartment was fantastic. So the Bookseller's Secret. So tomorrow she's going to be on Crowdcast. It's a free event. So you can just go to our website, click here on the free virtual event, and you'll be able to hear her talk about it. And then you can buy the book from Warwick. She's going to come by the store, I think, later this week to sign some stock for us too. So there you go. Bookseller's Secret.
The new Lucy Foley Paris is coming next year because it's called Paris Apartment as well.
Oh, is it? Oh, there's a lot of books called The Paris Apartment, though, I found out.
I mean, that's like the dream. I'd love to have it at Paris.
Yeah. And Michelle's first one was about the woman who was like, there was like this woman who collected art, or I don't know what it was, but it was like the apartment was like closed up for decades. And then somebody went in and found all this like famous artwork and stuff in it. But anywho, so that's our recommendations for the week. So yay, we did good, gang. Cheers.
Done early.
Done early. Cheers. Cheers to you all. Here's our tea time. All right. Happy reading, everybody. Don't watch too much news. Read a book. And we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Now.